On the night of July 14, 2010, in East Memphis, a respected judge took an action that would forever shatter his family, his career, and his soul. A quiet night turned deadly in an instant. Headlights pierced through the darkness, illuminating two unsuspecting figures standing near a car. Before they could react, a speeding SUV barreled toward them with chilling precision. The sound of metal crunching against flesh echoed through the abandoned parking lot, followed by an eerie silence. What drives a man who has spent years dispensing justice to become its perpetrator? Judge Marlon Bailey, a respected district court judge, a devoted husband, and a loving father, crossed a line he never thought possible. Was it betrayal? Obsession? Or something far darker buried deep within his psyche? Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where we delve into the most harrowing real-life cases and uncover the truths behind human nature. Today, we unravel the chilling tale of Judge Marlon Bailey, a story of love, deception, revenge, and the devastating consequences when personal pain collides with professional integrity. How far would you go if your world came crashing down around you? If you love true crime stories that explore the darkest corners of human emotion, hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss out on more gripping episodes from Vic's True Crime Stories. So let's begin. What happened next will leave you questioning the very limits of morality, and whether anyone is truly beyond redemption. Marlon Bailey was a man admired by many, respected for his unwavering commitment to justice. As a district court judge in East Memphis, he was known not just for his sharp intellect but also for his fairness and integrity. He had built a reputation as someone who stood firm on principles, never swayed by personal biases or external pressures. To those who knew him professionally, Marlon was the epitome of decorum and discipline. But behind closed doors, Marlon led what seemed like a picture-perfect life. He was married to Imani, his high school sweetheart, with whom he shared 14 years of marriage. Together, they had a son named Elijah, a bright and curious teenager who looked up to his father as both a role model and a hero. Their home in East Memphis was filled with laughter, warmth, and memories. Family dinners, weekend trips, and quiet evenings spent together. It was the kind of life most people only dreamed of. Yet, beneath this facade of perfection, cracks began to form, subtle at first but growing wider with each passing day. Imani, once the loving partner who complemented Marlon's stern demeanor, started to seem distant. She would often disappear on late-night outings without explanation, returning home long after Marlon had gone to bed. Her phone became her constant companion, clutched tightly even during meals and conversations. When Marlon tried to engage her in meaningful discussions, she responded with vague answers or deflected entirely, leaving him feeling increasingly isolated. Elijah noticed the changes too, though he couldn't quite put his finger on them. His parents' interactions grew colder, their smiles more forced, their words less frequent. There were moments when Elijah caught glimpses of tension between them, a fleeting glance, an unspoken argument, but he brushed it off, assuming it was just another phase that families went through. For Marlon, however, these signs gnawed at him relentlessly. One evening, while reviewing their monthly bank statements, a routine task he performed diligently, he stumbled upon something alarming. Large sums of money, amounts far beyond ordinary household expenses, had been transferred to an account linked to Kendrick Lawson, a financial advisor whose name Marlon recognized from social circles. At first, Marlon told himself there must be a reasonable explanation. Perhaps Imani had invested in some new opportunity without discussing it with him. But deep down, doubt crept in, planting seeds of suspicion that refused to fade. As he sat alone in his study, staring at the numbers on the screen, Marlon felt his heart pounding in his chest. How could she do this? He whispered to himself, the question echoing in his mind like a haunting refrain. After everything we've built together, is it possible? No, it can't be true. Yet, despite his attempts to dismiss the thought, the nagging voice inside him wouldn't relent. What if this wasn't just about money? What if there was something deeper, something he didn't want to confront? In that moment, Marlon realized his world was shifting beneath him, and he wasn't sure how to stop it. The man who prided himself on logic and reason now found himself consumed by questions he couldn't answer. Was his perfect life unraveling before his eyes? And if so, what could he possibly do to fix it? Loving this story so far? Help us bring these kinds of videos to more viewers like you by liking, commenting, and sharing this video with friends who enjoy thought-provoking true crime content. Every share helps grow our community here at Vic's True Crime Stories. Marlon's once-ordered world began to spiral out of control, and in his desperation to regain some semblance of authority, he turned to measures that would haunt him for years to come. Driven by a need to uncover the truth, he installed hidden cameras throughout their home. At first, Marlon justified this decision as a precautionary measure, a way to ensure the safety of his family. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. It was an attempt to reclaim the power he felt slipping away, a desperate bid to understand what had gone so terribly wrong. As days turned into weeks, Marlon became consumed by the footage these cameras captured. What he saw only fueled his growing paranoia and anger. Flashbacks of intimate moments between Imani and Kendrick Lawson played out before him like a cruel reminder of everything he had lost. There they were, laughing together, sharing glances filled with warmth and connection, gestures that once belonged solely to Marlon. Each scene cut deeper than the last, chipping away at the foundation of trust and love he thought was unshakable. One evening, as Marlon sat alone in his study, he watched live footage from one of the cameras. His breath hitched as he saw Imani and Kendrick sitting side by side on the couch in their living room. They leaned toward each other, their conversation animated and carefree, until finally, she reached out and touched his arm. Then came the embrace, a moment so tender it left Marlon reeling. Clenching his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white, he muttered under his breath, "This isn't happening. This can't be real." The weight of betrayal pressed heavily upon him, but instead of confronting his emotions directly, Marlon buried himself further in the evidence he had gathered. He replayed scenes over and over, dissecting every detail, searching for answers that might ease the pain or provide clarity. Yet all he found was confirmation of what he already feared. Imani had moved on, finding comfort and companionship elsewhere. For a man who prided himself on logic and reason, this revelation was unbearable. His desire for control clashed violently with the chaos unraveling within him, leaving him fractured and uncertain. Despite the turmoil brewing inside him, Marlon managed to maintain his professional composure. In the courtroom, he remained the same steadfast judge, delivering verdicts with unwavering precision. Colleagues praised his dedication and applauded his ability to handle even the most complex cases with grace and fairness. To them, Marlon appeared untouched by personal struggles, a paragon of strength and resilience. But behind closed doors, the cracks in his facade grew wider, threatening to consume him entirely. At work, Marlon often retreated into his thoughts during lulls in proceedings, imagining scenarios where he confronted Imani and demanded explanations. Yet when faced with the reality of her infidelity, he hesitated, unsure whether he truly wanted to know the truth. The conflict raging within him was relentless. His judicial instincts told him to seek justice, while his heart yearned for reconciliation, however unlikely it seemed. This internal struggle defined his descent into obsession, turning his life into a labyrinth of doubt and despair. Even as his private world crumbled, Marlon continued to navigate his professional obligations with remarkable poise. He attended community events, presided over trials, and engaged in discussions about legal reforms, all while carrying the burden of his shattered personal life. To the outside world, he was still Judge Marlon Bailey, a pillar of integrity and wisdom. But to himself, he was a man broken, struggling to reconcile the image others saw with the turmoil he experienced daily. And so the cycle continued, cameras capturing moments he couldn't bear to witness, late nights spent replaying footage, and endless questions without answers. With each passing day, Marlon's grip on reality weakened, replaced by a fixation on the details of Imani's betrayal. It was a descent into darkness, driven not just by anger but also by fear, the fear of losing everything he held dear. Want to see what happens next? Stay tuned, we're just getting started. And if you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Vic's True Crime Stories for even more gripping stories. The night of July 14, 2010, was unlike any other in Marlon Bailey's life. It marked the culmination of months of simmering anger, betrayal, and obsession. That evening, Marlon parked his SUV in an abandoned lot on the outskirts of East Memphis, a place where shadows loomed long and silence reigned. From there, he monitored the live feed from the hidden cameras installed in his home. The air inside the car was thick with tension as he watched the screen intently, his breath shallow and uneven. On the feed, Imani and Kendrick Lawson sat together on the couch, their laughter echoing through the speakers. They were engrossed in conversation, completely unaware of the eyes watching them from afar. As they leaned closer, sharing another intimate moment, Marlon's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His knuckles turned white, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. The sight before him ignited a firestorm of emotions: rage, humiliation, and despair, all colliding within him like waves crashing against a fragile shore. Marlon's breathing grew heavier, each inhale sharp and labored. He could feel his pulse pounding in his temples, the rhythm matching the storm brewing inside him. In that moment, rational thought dissolved into primal instinct. The man who had spent years dispensing justice from the bench now found himself consumed by vengeance, driven by a need to reclaim control over a life spiraling out of his grasp. With trembling hands, Marlon started the engine of his SUV. The hum of the vehicle filled the empty parking lot, a precursor to the chaos about to unfold. His foot hovered over the accelerator, hesitation warring with resolve. For a brief second, doubt flickered across his mind, a fleeting reminder of the man he once was, the values he held dear. But it wasn't enough to stop him. With a deep exhale, he pressed down hard on the gas pedal, propelling the vehicle forward with unwavering determination. The distance between him and the house seemed endless yet fleeting, each second stretching into eternity. As he approached, the live feed showed Imani and Kendrick still oblivious, caught up in their own world. Then, suddenly, the headlights of the SUV illuminated the scene, blinding them both. There was no time for reaction, only a split-second realization of impending doom. The sound of metal meeting flesh echoed through the night, reverberating like a gunshot in the quiet neighborhood. The impact sent shockwaves through the air, leaving behind an eerie silence broken only by the crunch of shattered glass and twisted metal. When Marlon emerged from the SUV, his movements were deliberate, almost mechanical. He walked slowly toward the scene, his face devoid of emotion, betraying none of the turmoil raging within him. Onlookers would later describe him as calm, almost eerily so, as though he had prepared himself for this moment. As police sirens wailed in the distance, Marlon took a seat on the curb, staring blankly ahead. His voice, barely above a whisper, carried the weight of finality. "I did it. I took care of it." News of the incident spread rapidly, igniting a firestorm of public reaction. Media outlets descended upon East Memphis, eager to uncover the story behind the respected judge-turned-killer. Headlines screamed of betrayal and revenge, painting Marlon as either a victim pushed too far or a cold-blooded murderer incapable of empathy. Public opinion was divided, with some sympathizing with his pain while others condemned his actions as unforgivable. Interviews with neighbors revealed conflicting perspectives. Some spoke of Marlon's kindness and dedication, describing him as a man who always put others first. Others hinted at tensions in his marriage, noting changes in behavior that went unnoticed until it was too late. Meanwhile, Imani's family expressed their grief and outrage, labeling Marlon a monster who had destroyed not just their daughter's life but also his own son's future. As the investigation unfolded, forensic evidence and surveillance footage painted a chilling picture of premeditation. Prosecutors argued that Marlon's actions were calculated, pointing to the hidden cameras and financial records as proof of his intent. To many, the case became a symbol of how even the most respected individuals could fall prey to the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Sitting alone in the back of a police cruiser, Marlon remained silent, his expression unreadable. The man who once commanded respect in the courtroom now faced charges that would alter the course of his life forever. Yet amidst the chaos, one question lingered in the minds of all who followed the case. Was Marlon truly beyond redemption, or was he simply a man broken by circumstances beyond his control? Did Marlon deserve his punishment? Or was he pushed too far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with friends who love discussing complex true crime cases like this one. The trial of Judge Marlon Bailey became a spectacle that captivated the nation, drawing in legal experts, journalists, and members of the public alike. The courtroom was packed with spectators eager to witness the unraveling of a case that blurred the lines between justice, morality, and personal vendettas. As the proceedings began, the prosecution laid out its argument with precision, painting Marlon as a man who had meticulously planned the murders of his wife, Imani, and her lover, Kendrick Lawson. The prosecution's case rested heavily on forensic evidence. Tire marks at the scene, surveillance footage from the hidden cameras installed by Marlon himself, and financial records showing suspicious transactions linked to Kendrick Lawson. Witnesses testified about Marlon's behavior in the weeks leading up to the incident, describing him as increasingly withdrawn yet eerily composed. His colleagues spoke of a man who seemed unchanged professionally, delivering verdicts with the same unwavering fairness he was known for, even as his personal life crumbled around him. This juxtaposition only strengthened the prosecution's claim that Marlon's actions were premeditated, driven by a desire for control and revenge. On the other side, the defense fought fiercely to paint Marlon as a victim of circumstance, arguing temporary insanity brought on by extreme emotional trauma. They presented testimony from psychologists who described how prolonged exposure to betrayal and deceit can lead to irrational decision-making. Friends and acquaintances recounted stories of Marlon's devotion to his family, emphasizing how deeply the betrayal must have affected him. One colleague remembered Marlon once saying, "Justice is not just about punishment. It's about understanding why people make the choices they do." The defense used this philosophy to humanize their client, urging the jury to consider the complexities of human emotion rather than reducing Marlon to a cold-blooded killer. As the trial unfolded, Marlon maintained an outward stoicism that baffled many. To those observing, he appeared detached, almost indifferent to the gravity of the accusations against him. Yet behind closed doors, his anguish boiled over. In private moments, Marlon confided in his lawyers, expressing regret not just for taking lives but for failing his family. He questioned whether his need for control had ultimately cost him everything he held dear. These internal struggles remained hidden from the public eye, leaving observers to wonder if Marlon truly felt remorse or if his calm demeanor was merely another act. Outside the courtroom, the fallout of the case reverberated through both families involved. Imani's family condemned Marlon publicly, speaking out in interviews and filing civil lawsuits seeking damages for wrongful death. Her parents described their daughter as a vibrant woman whose potential was tragically cut short. They accused Marlon of destroying not only her life but also the lives of their grandchildren, including Elijah, who they believed deserved better than a father capable of such violence. Kendrick Lawson's mother, however, chose a quieter path. In a rare interview, she spoke privately about her son, reflecting on his untimely death with sorrow rather than anger. She acknowledged Kendrick's flaws but emphasized that no one deserves to die in such a manner. Her words struck a chord with many, reminding them that behind the headlines and court battles were real people grappling with loss and grief. For Elijah, the impact of his father's crime was profound. At school, whispers followed him wherever he went. Classmates avoided him, unsure how to approach someone whose father had committed such a heinous act. Teachers tread carefully, offering sympathy while trying not to intrude. Elijah withdrew further into himself, avoiding discussions about the case and struggling to find his place in a world that now viewed him differently. He carried the weight of his father's actions silently, torn between loyalty and shame. In the midst of all this chaos, Elijah found solace in small acts of rebellion, writing poetry late at night, venting frustrations in journals no one else would read. He longed for answers but feared confronting the truth. How could he reconcile the loving father he remembered with a man who had taken 2 lives? The question haunted him, leaving him adrift in a sea of uncertainty. As the trial drew to a close, the jury deliberated for days before finally reaching a verdict. Guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, some satisfied, others disbelieving. For Marlon, the verdict marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, a life defined not by justice dispensed but by justice received. What would you do if someone close to you committed such a crime? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and remember to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on new episodes of Vic's True Crime Stories. Life behind bars was a stark contrast to the world Marlon Bailey once knew. Stripped of his title, his authority, and the respect that came with it, he now lived in a place where every moment was dictated by rules and routines. Yet, amidst the harsh realities of prison life, Marlon found solace in reflection and writing. He spent hours composing letters to his son, Elijah, pouring out his heart in words he had never dared to say before. Each letter was an attempt at redemption, a plea for understanding, and a reminder of the love he still held for his family. At first, Elijah avoided these letters. The weight of what his father had done felt too heavy to confront, and the thought of engaging with Marlon's words brought back memories he wished to forget. But one day, curiosity got the better of him. He opened a letter and began to read. The sincerity in Marlon's words moved him deeply. For the first time, Elijah saw not just the man who had committed a crime, but the father who carried immense regret and sorrow. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a step toward healing. Months later, Elijah made the decision to visit Marlon in prison. The meeting room was cold and sterile, with a thick pane of glass separating them. As they sat facing each other, the silence between them spoke volumes. Finally, Marlon broke it, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm sorry, Elijah," Marlon said, his eyes locked onto his son's. "For everything. I failed you, but I want you to know I still love you." Elijah hesitated, his gaze dropping briefly before meeting his father's again. His response came slowly, tinged with uncertainty but also hope. "I don't know if I can forgive you, but maybe someday. You were my hero once. Can you be again?" The question hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful. Marlon nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. "I'll try, Elijah. Every day I'll try." Their conversation continued, tentative and raw, as both men grappled with the complexities of their relationship. There was no easy resolution, no instant absolution, only the beginning of a long and difficult journey toward reconciliation. As the visit ended, Elijah left the prison feeling conflicted but lighter than he had in years. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that healing might be possible, even if it required patience and effort from both sides. Reflecting on the events that unfolded, it becomes clear that this story is more than just a tale of betrayal and revenge. It's about the fragility of trust, the power of obsession, and the possibility of redemption. Marlon's actions may have been unforgivable, but his journey highlights the human capacity for growth, even in the darkest moments. Justice isn't always black and white. Sometimes, it's messy, complicated, and deeply personal. In the end, neither Marlon nor Elijah will ever fully escape the shadow of that fateful night. But perhaps, through their shared pain and fragile connection, they found a way to move forward, not as they once were, but as two people striving to rebuild themselves amidst the ruins of their past. Thanks for watching this episode of Vic's True Crime Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the complexities of human nature, please like, comment, and share this video to help others discover our channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update.